Someone has already done and is already doing what you want to do. And no, they didn't fall into a rich family to do so. They were not born lucky. You know you can be more. You can have more, do more, and be more. You know this. You wouldn't be listening otherwise.
And welcome back to another episode of Key Factors Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Jones, and we are powered by ReviewMyMortgage.com, the largest index of mortgage programs in the nation. And you're listening to Real Estate AF, and the AF stands for And Finance. The last couple of episodes, guys, we had a guest, Moses Thatcher, which turned into a two-part episode, kind of talking about his life and the struggles and how he had overcome them. And then recently you got to educate yourself about EQ, emotional intelligence. And I wanted to continue down the road of getting additional realtors on here to share their stories so that more of you can relate and understand where they come from, where they're at, and where they're going. So today I'm joined by Whitney Robinson. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So first time on a podcast?
Second.
Okay. First time on a cool podcast like this?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, cool. I'm like, dang it.
Like,
Who is this other person?
My broker.
Okay, good deal. Good deal. Yes. AJ.
He has a great podcast too.
AJ's been on here a couple of times.
Yeah.
So Whitney, to start this thing off, if you could, there's folks out there listening, tuning in for the first time. This show is intended to inspire, shed light on many situations, showcase experts in your situation, but also talk about where we came from, showing them that them too is kind of sitting in your shoes in many cases, and how that ends up for you. So if you could, why should people start listening to you in this case scenario? If you could just kind of take us back to, what are you about? Where did you, before you got into the industry, all that good stuff?
Yeah.
Who's Whitney?
Who's Whitney? So great question. It's actually one I really love sharing this story. And the biggest reason why is because I feel I'm very faith-based. So I will start with that is God does not put you through multiple mountains that have to be climbed if you're not meant to show someone else that it can be done.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
And I truly believe that. It took me a long time to really realize that. I used to be a very angry person that I'm like, why me? Like, again, why another battle? Why another struggle? Why abuse? Why trauma? Like, why does this keep happening? And for me, just to really start back where I was born, where I was raised, I am born in a very small town in Virginia. My graduating class was only 85 of us. So when I say small town, I mean everyone knows your business. They know your parents' business. They know your business. They know your family.
What was the small town?
It's a very small town called Waynesboro, Virginia.
Okay.
So in between like Charlottesville and Harrisonburg.
Okay, gotcha.
I lived in the Shenandoah Valley of the Blue Ridge Mountains. So
It sounds cool.
I mean, there's not much to do there. It's beautiful, obviously, being surrounded by the mountains, but it is one of those towns where it's definitely like the grunt workers of America. A lot of
Definitely
factory
blue collar.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Very factory line workers, Walmart, gas station, retail, bank, hospital, and then factory. Like that was it. That was
So
really
like the 8 Mile of Virginia.
for sure.
Gotcha.
Like just not where I really saw myself like progressing and moving forward. I always knew just sitting even in high school, looking out the window going, my God, there's got to be something else to this world besides cornfields and cows.
Yeah.
Just need it out. But something I just really want to talk about that I don't feel a lot of people ever talk about is, yes, we talk about childhood trauma, maybe things that we've been through, but what is financial trauma?
Right.
And how did that have an effect on me? And I'm sure it's had an effect on a lot of people because what you don't know, you just don't know. You don't know how to get out of it. Our education system sure doesn't teach you anything about financial literacy. And financial literacy, either taught well or not taught at all, or just shown into debt, is typically by the family that you're coming from.
I 100% agree with that. So what I want to do, I want to put that on a shelf for just a moment so that I can ask, what did you do prior to real estate, career-wise, job-wise, things of that nature? We're almost the same age, so I know
Yeah.
real estate wasn't your whole life.
Yeah.
And before we get into the good stuff, essentially, what was it that you did before? Many things, one thing?
I did.
Okay.
I was like a jack of all trades. I liked to, maybe it was just trying to find myself and know what I was interested in and what I was passionate about. Whenever I was in grade school, or as soon as I could, always started waitressing.
Okay.
So talk about service,
Yeah.
right? Like, I feel if you're going to be in any sales or service position, you should always waitress. Even if you're not, you should just go and do it because it's going to build tough skin
Yeah.
and a good work ethic. So always waitressed. Retail. As far as after college, I actually was a wealth management and business banker. So
Okay.
always been intrigued.
Who'd you work for on that?
I was with Wells Fargo.
Okay, good deal. I did
Yeah.
almost the same thing, but with Chase back in the
Okay.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. So very corporate, 9 to 5.
Womp womp.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like just very mundane. Liked my job, loved the benefits. But other than that, it was like, I mean, still not very fulfilling.
Sure.
Like I like what I'm doing. It's okay. And it is stable, but I still felt very bored.
Yeah.
And
Not challenged.
no, definitely not.
Okay.
Like I could do that job with my eyes closed. And then also coming into motherhood, I did not want to be this 9 to 5 rat race all the time.
Sure.
I wanted to spend time with my son. And so made that pivot into real estate from there. But I've always been intrigued from a very young age. I remember for sure around 10 is when I really started having questions about debit cards, credit cards, checks, money. What does that look like? Why? And I know we put it on the shelf, so we'll come back to that, but kind of leading into why money and finance
Sure.
just triggered me and was a very big interest. So I actually went to college for fashion buying, merchandising, and international sales.
Okay.
So that blend of financing mixed with the real estate side,
Yeah.
staging, architecture, design, swatches, colors, palettes, just all of it.
Yeah.
I feel like now real estate takes everything that I learned in college and is just a beautiful blend.
And that's a good point. So let's grab that off of the shelf. And you mentioned something that caught my attention regarding the Bible, and I'm very familiar with the Bible in itself, and it is a collaboration of categorized lessons, stories
For sure.
that each person goes through, the struggles, the overcoming of them, giving the hope, things of that nature. And if folks reading the Bible don't get any of those stories and how they apply and whatnot, read it again because it's very, very clear in my opinion. That being the case, what are some struggles that you went through growing up? And I know you mentioned you started getting curious around 10. I'll be honest, I wasn't curious at 10. I had no clue at that time. I don't even know at 10. I was like video games, football, basketball, girls.
Yeah.
Maybe even.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that because I now have a 7-year-old and this little boy, because I thought 10 is young, to worry and go like, hey mom, so what's that card and what does that do? And
Sure.
why do you use it? And now I have like my little twin, personality wise, and he's very intrigued about money. He absolutely knows. He asks me about ARV when I do investments and flips, and then he's even nosy sometimes and even asks my neighbor, like, so how much is your truck payment? And like, how much do you make at your job? And I'm like, oh my God, shut up. Like, you can't ask strangers that.
But it's not necessarily a bad thing, his curiosity, because I mean, the alternative is him not knowing about it and
sure.
not asking those questions and allowing him to shape what his future looks like according to these new set of not necessarily guidelines, but we are what we experience what we go through.
And that's 100% because I say, Wes, like you can't ask people that. And he goes, well, you ask people about their finances all the time. And I'm like, Right. Because I'm a realtor and I do very detailed buyer consultations. I need to so I can, relay it back to the lender. But anyways, he's like, well, I just figured if you always ask, I can ask.
There
I'm
you
like,
go.
well,
It's a good
I
point.
mean, you're
It's a good
not
point.
wrong.
You tell him Mark Jones said, you can ask anything, just don't talk politics or religion with people you don't know.
For sure. 100%. But yeah, so starting back, the biggest thing that I just remember in grade school and always standing out, and I think were my curiosity about money and how that just makes the world tick and people's judgment on others when it comes to money just really triggered me because personally, I've always been prejudged by the way I look, the way I carry myself, the things I have now, the business that I have. And from the surface, a lot of people kind of prejudge me like, oh, she probably comes from a great family. Her parents are probably still married. She probably had, things given to her. Just this persona of how people think my life was is 100% wrong. 100%. I come from.
Let's set the record straight right now.
I'm like, let's set it straight. And it's not that I don't mind. It's okay if people feel that way. But when you don't know someone and you think things have just been handed to them, your persona of them is completely different. And that's not how life was. I remember my parents being divorced when I was 3. That happened because my dad was very physically, emotionally, verbally abusive, not only to my mother, but to me as well. So we both went through that.
Mm-hmm.
They divorced when I was 3. My mom was a single mom who just relentlessly worked. And I didn't know this until about last week, but I think even me growing up, the most money she ever made was $11.50 an hour. And I'm like,
how did you do it?
How
Yeah.
did you do that? And we never had food stamps. She never took subsidies from the government because she was like, well, if I have a body that can work and I can get up and go, whether it's making me a lot of money or not, I just learned how to manage what I had. So she stewarded money well.
Yeah.
She never. I definitely felt it. We did not have a lot. I do remember sometimes that we didn't have lights on. I sometimes remember more times than not, casseroles in the South were a big thing.
Mm-hmm. I didn't eat off of it for several days.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that until I was more, like 16, and realized why. I'm like, why every single week are we having another casserole?
In my household, it was enchiladas.
That,
you roll them up on a whole dish and then you can eat on them for a couple days.
Yeah, for a couple days. But I remember eating the same meal like Monday through Friday and just very
incremental.
Very incremental. And then another thing, which I thought some of the things were cute, but there was one you just never remember, like when children say things that can be so hurtful. And I had no idea because, yes, I knew we didn't have a lot of money, but if my mom would bring me home like a brand new shirt or something, I remember this one moment, and I think I was in middle school. My mom brought me home a new shirt and I was like, oh, it's cute. I'm going to wear it to school. I didn't know where it came from. I didn't ask. I didn't really care, but I wore it to school and I got made fun of. And someone goes, really? You're wearing a shirt from Dollar General? And I was like,
how the hell did they even know that? Number one.
No, maybe. I have no idea. First of all, I'm like, I didn't even know Dollar General sold clothes. And I remember crying at school. I was so embarrassed. I was made fun of for wearing like very cheap clothes when everyone else was wearing American Eagle, Abercrombie, Hollister, like these brands. My mom could never afford a $40 t-shirt and an $80 pair of jeans. Like that just wasn't happening.
I totally remember what that was like. And me being me, kind of growing up in the same era as you.
Yeah.
We didn't have the means to spend the extra to get the Abercrombie and all that stuff. So what I did was bartered and traded and made the not so cool stuff cool.
Yeah.
That the kids would literally trade me for the non-cool stuff or the Abercrombie stuff.
I wasn't as cool as you then or that good of a negotiator at that point.
Shout out to all of you from back in the day that
right?
I gotcha.
Like, gotcha, joke's on you. And that's how I feel now. But I mean, kids are just cruel.
Kids are cruel.
Like, they just are. And then it was also like, oh, well, I see your mom drives this, or oh, you don't have that. And yes, materialistic, food, no lights, that whatever it might have been, it was just tough.
Mhm.
And I remember just feeling like, man, I never get to see my mom that much. I've always, since I was 7 years old, which is mind blowing to me because my kid is now 7. And I'm like, I can't imagine making
Puts it in
my
perspective.
child,
Yeah.
yes. But since I was 7, my mom had to be at work very early. So I have been waking myself up with an alarm. I would hop in the shower. I would give myself cereal. I would brush my teeth and get on the school bus. If I did that every single day and also got off the school bus and back into the house, because she would leave before I had to get on the bus and she would come home after I already got home from school. So it was I would only probably see my mom, even since I was 7, maybe 2 to 3 hours a day.
Mm,
And I was really the one raising myself.
right.
And my mom couldn't afford a babysitter. So she would pay me $1 a day if I would get myself on the bus and get myself off the bus. At that time, I thought like, oh my gosh, I'm making $5 a week. This is awesome. Every Saturday, she would take me to the bank. I would deposit my money.
What a smart lady, because at the same time as you earning the skills and experiencing what it takes to actually become self-sufficient,
For sure.
you were also getting rewarded for doing so,
Yes.
and almost didn't you didn't even take it, I don't know, it was just something that you had to do.
Yeah.
But she turned it into something that was totally a lesson.
100%. Yeah. Because I remember one day I missed the bus to get to school. Well, I only made $4 that week. And I was like, oh my God, I just woke up 5 minutes late and I missed the bus. Like if I'm even a minute late, I miss out on money.
Yeah.
And so it was that lesson that she had already instilled in me out of pure desperation for her and not
Right.
being able to afford it. But she turned it around to one, empower me. I was able to do it. Now, mind you, way different time. We're talking about
Sure.
like early 90s, rural town in Virginia, super safe neighborhoods. I would never suggest any parent doing this, even if you live in Virginia, like don't do that. We just live in a way different day and age.
It's a different, it's a
just
different time.
Different time.
And matter of fact,
But-
the bullying is different. Everything
I
is
can't even
different and has
imagine.
evolved.
I'm like, I'm over here complaining about how someone made me feel with a t-shirt. And there's people over, on social media just eating people alive
Mhm.
that don't even know you
Right.
about your character, your values, how you dress, how you look, what nationality you are, what sexual orientation you define by. Like there are so many things I can't even imagine
And
our
that's
youth
that's also
and what
why
they go through.
I believe it's a tough world for them to be living in, because
For sure.
our cruelty was a face-to-face cruelty,
Yeah.
so to speak, that
Yeah.
we can see it coming. We
Yeah.
can see the threat, overcome the threat.
Yeah.
In this world, it's creating kids
Thousands.
that are essentially fearful of words
Right.
versus actions, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
their hardships or their adversities are very minute compared to the adversities that you went through,
Right.
and can tell the story of how
Yeah.
you have succeeded despite that.
Right.
And for them, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I like that you actually keep your kid in the loop on these things,
Yeah.
because once he gets older, I would imagine that
Yeah.
when he sees the bullying, because it doesn't matter who you are, you can
Right.
see something as bullying from a different perspective, any which way you look at it.
100%.
Even the bully at times gets bullied in different situations,
Yeah.
but hopefully he'll be able to see that and go, that's nothing compared to what,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Continue. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I agree with that. And even with my son, we've already talked about a few things one day. And I always do like a mental check-in. I think it's really important. So even when I pick him up from school, I'm like, hey, how was your day?
Yeah.
Great. Now, how's your heart feel today? How was your heart? And then how was your mind? And we rate them on like 1 to 10 because I want to know, like you have to ask.
Yeah.
And there was one day, I do remember I picked him up from school and he's like, my day was about a 7. It was okay. But my heart today is a 2. And I'm like, oh my God.
Breaks your heart too.
Why?
Yep.
I'm like, well, then how's your mind? And he's like, also like a 2. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? but we're having these discussions
Sure.
already. And he's like, Mom, I'm just so nice and I'm so kind. And I was just trying to help. And then they turned it around on me and made me, did this and went and told the teacher and all of this stuff. And I'm, just talking through with him. But I want to always have that open conversation,
Absolutely.
even if he's 7. Like, there's no time too early to already start having these conversations, because something that obviously, okay, it can't be that hard of a bullying situation, but if your kid is already, their heart feels sad and their mind feels sad, it's important.
Yeah. And to add to your point, number one, I believe it is never too young to teach them that concept. I have to add to it that as you teach that concept, it's also important to keep certain, let's call it number ranges, into perspective, because there is this overall thing called growth and overcoming things that tends to allow you to experience new highs and new lows. So your 2 today, I promise you, a year from now, with all the experiences that you go through, that same 2 is only going to be a 7 moving forward.
Yeah.
If we're on a scale from 1 to 10, and 10 is I feel great type concept.
Yeah.
And they will, I guess, drag you down less as you experience more. And what's happening these days is people aren't experiencing things. They're kind of selling themselves short of taking the jump or the next step because they're scared of failure.
Yeah. 100%.
Anywho,
It's a good concept.
It is. It really
like
is.
that.
So that being the case with trauma, the abuse that you went through, moving forward, at what point did you migrate this way to Texas?
So my move to Texas was actually for my ex-husband's job.
Okay.
And great company. He's still there. Obviously, just life kind of happened, which it always does. But
Or it doesn't.
Or it just doesn't happen, and you just stay stagnant and complacent.
Get busy doing nothing.
Yeah, that's true too. With that being said, we moved here for his job. I was with Wells Fargo, so I had a pretty smooth, easy transfer just into a wealth management role down in Alamo Heights. Was the lead business banker and wealth management banker there. And
I did the same thing, business banking, but for Chase.
That's so awesome. I had no idea.
I wish I had Alamo Heights. My goodness. I was actually off San Pedro and Fresno. So right down the street from Alamo Heights.
Yeah, yeah.
Not Alamo Heights.
Not Alamo Heights. It was a good place to be. I mean, I didn't know. I was like, man, I hit the jackpot with this transfer.
For those of
I'll
you,
take it.
Yeah, for those of you,
the 09ers.
For those of you listening out there that are not from San Antonio and tuning in, Alamo Heights is a historic, wealthy part of San Antonio, kind of right in the heart of, very sought out for their schools, very sought out for their property, community, etc. I mean, you've got homes that you'll have a rickety shack that's worth $200,000, and right next to it is $1 million property.
Yeah, multi-million-dollar property now. Oh my word, it's insane. So yeah, it was a great transfer, and met a lot of amazing people there. And one of my clients that I actually was their banker for, they were flipping houses all the time.
Okay,
and we would name all of their LLCs A through. I think I did with them. I started LLC A all the way through H. And that's how many houses they had. And so each LLC, we would name it, like just nickname it on the bank accounts, LLC A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down. And as I was talking to them, and I will tell you, like, I just loved being a part of their journey and how excited they were. They were a young couple, family. I'm like, man, they're really doing this. Like it just started bringing this, I guess, trigger for me of going, well, if they can do it, maybe I could. But at that time, like I said, I was just very comfortable with knowing I had a 401k, knowing I had PTO, knowing that I had my health insurance, my dental insurance, my vision insurance. Like, I just felt good. Because going back to school, what do we learn? We don't learn about finances, but we learn calculus that we never use. Maybe you do in your job. I don't in mine. I use addition, subtraction,
Go to school,
And,
get
you
good
know,
grades, get a
yeah.
good job, live a good life. That's what
Yeah,
the
that's what they teach you.
whole
And then go to
brainwash.
corporate. Yeah, and then go to corporate, make sure that you have good benefits, work 9 to 5, come home and do it again.
Yeah.
And so I did all of that and I still felt super underfilled
Yeah.
with everything I was doing. Well, life happened to me.
Okay.
But now I know it actually happened for me at that time.
Different kid on the bus that you're looking
For sure. And it's all about the mindset, which I know we'll get into later, which I'm super passionate about. But when I moved here for my ex-husband's job, worked at Wells Fargo, within my time frame. So moved here December 29th, 2015.
Okay.
I got a phone call on January 1st, 2016, within less than 48 hours after moving here, that my father passed away. Had to go all the way back to Virginia and handle everything.
Now, did you guys have a decent relationship after the fallout? No? Okay.
I would say yes and no. Not necessarily like a relationship.
Sure.
When someone has hurt you so physically.
To the core, yeah.
To the core. And then also was just gone for so many years in prison and just other things. I never had this deep sense of fatherly love. And it's not that I do feel bad saying this. I just didn't have respect for my father. But how can you have respect for someone that's hurt you so deeply?
I don't blame you for that at all. Matter of fact, respect should be earned.
For sure.
And if he lost that privilege to do so.
Like I didn't make you do that. You did that.
Right. Choices.
And how people say sometimes the best family are the family members that you get to choose, not the family members that you have. And I think for me, I'm very grateful for my close girlfriends that I have because they're definitely my chosen family.
Sure.
And everybody else in my family, wonderful. And my dad, I have a lot of grace and forgiveness for him, but it took a long time for me to even forgive the hurt that he put me through. But forgiveness, I also found out, is more for me, not necessarily for you. I just had to relinquish the pain that you caused me so I could move on.
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to accept that forgiveness, which he did, and I'm glad that we at least had a good conversation before he passed and that we did come to a mutual understanding of, hey, yes, you're my biological dad. Now, were you ever really a father? No, but I don't hate you. I do forgive you. I don't condone what you did, but I can at least let you know that by the grace of God, I do relinquish that. And however you feel like you need to move forward, that's not for me to judge. That's between you and somebody else and a higher power, whatever you believe in. But that's kind of the conversation I had with him. So with that being said, because I am an only child, because my parents are divorced, I'm still next in kin. So I had to still deal with everything.
Still playing mom.
Yep. Still doing all of that. So came back. I hadn't even started my new job yet. Like this all happened within 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
No, like my transfer happened. We had just moved in. We were still sleeping on like the floor because our bed and boxes and everything still weren't put together. Get that phone call January 1st on New Year's Day. Take care of everything. Start my job, I think about 4 weeks later, because then I took bereavement. Before I even started, I took bereavement. And then 6 months later, I got pregnant with my son. This was a planned pregnancy. It wasn't like, oh, just oops. So
I was an oops, so it's okay. Good things comes out of oops.
But and I'm going to kind of circle back and tell you why it was like, oh, well, it was planned because growing up in Virginia and just this very, like Baptist, just very, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like very
straight and narrow.
Do things how your parents tell you to do it.
Yeah.
And so we did that. And but things still just sometimes don't work out. And that's okay. But with that, got pregnant 6 months later. When I was on maternity leave, I think around like month 4, because I had a 4-month maternity leave, I was handed divorce papers. So standing in a brand new house with no friends, no family in Texas, because we have no friends and family in Texas. I do now. Well, I don't have family still in Texas, but I have friends now. And holding a 4-month-old. At that time, I was the breadwinner. And I'm like, there is no way, because being a child from physical abuse, there was no way on planet Earth that I was going to put my infant, who can't speak, who can't do anything, in strangers' hands in a state, in a city that I am not from, and that I don't have an auntie or a cousin or a friend that can go pick him up. God forbid something happens. And I was like, well, since everything just hit the fan, let's just go ahead and quit my job too.
Wow.
I did. I was like, all right, we're just going to knock it out all at once. We're going to be a new mom. We're going to sell the house. We're going to go through a divorce, and we're going to quit my job and go get my real estate license.
Just after your dad passed away.
Yes. I mean, everything. And all of these things that I went through within a year, 12-month period. Okay. So moved across the country, no friends, no family, death of a parent, started not necessarily a new job, but new city of clients.
Yeah.
Getting pregnant, becoming a new mom, postpartum, then divorce, sell the house, quit my job, go get my real estate license, and start a new business.
So is that how it literally chain of
like
events? Bam,
literally
bam, bam, bam.
100%.
So let me
All
ask you
within
then,
12 months.
what kept you, number one, I guess, what kept you here versus the alternative, moving back home?
Sure. So one, how I told you, the thought of there has to be more to life than cornfields and cows,
Yeah.
that's never going to leave my mind. You can't pay me. I love my family. I do love you guys. You can't pay me to go back and live in Virginia. You will not. If it wasn't Texas, it would be somewhere else.
Well, you want to know something cool?
Yeah.
They probably couldn't afford you.
Yeah, they couldn't.
Boom.
They couldn't afford to bring me back, unless maybe like Washington, D.C., but I also don't want to live there either. I'm like, I'm not a politics person. I always vote, but I don't want to live in the mix of that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live in D.C.
Well, maybe
but that's
that was
not even
the reason. Maybe that was the reason why, essentially, you pushed yourself to stay here and tough it out, because you didn't want to go backwards, and maybe everything happened for a reason within that chain of events that said, you know what, if the shit's hitting the fan, I'm just not going to stand under it. I'm going to go get it.
Yeah.
You know,
100%. So with that whole transition, for me, making sure, well, let me kind of go back a little bit. I also cared. Coming from a divorced family, I saw that even if you have to be divorced, I wanted something better for my son than what I had for myself.
That makes sense.
And I do not, because our divorce wasn't ugly. It was
abrupt.
It was just shocking how fast everything happened, and at the time that it did. But we didn't end on bad terms. Honestly, and this might shock people. Now, granted, we've done a lot of healing, a lot of counseling, and we're in a much better spot. But I'm helping him buy a house for my son, and we close August 5th.
Very cool.
How many people do you know that's helping their ex-spouse buy a home and doing what's best for them and their kids? But for me, it was, even if we're not going to be together, this is not how I thought life was going to pan out. But I still want my child to have a relationship with their dad, because I know not having a relationship with my dad, how much I missed out on. And I never wanted to rob my child of that. I'm not a bitter ex-wife, never asked for alimony, never asked for child support. I still don't to this day. We have a very cordial relationship, 50-50 with my son. And at the end of the day, we did have a very deep discussion, like going through the whole divorce care. At the end of the day, we have no family here. You don't have family here. I don't have family here. Even if we're not together, we technically will always still be family.
Yeah.
If an emergency happens to you, call me. If something happens to me, I'm going to call you. Well, now I always call my boyfriend, because now he's here too. And like, obviously that's going to be my first line of defense.
Right.
But that's how it should be. Like, I want my child to have joy in his life. I want him to have both parents. So that was my biggest why of why I stayed. in the mix of all of it, I absolutely wanted to run back home.
Yeah.
Not that I want to grow and have a business in Virginia. That wasn't the
No.
thing. But I'm like, man, I could really use a hug right
That's
now.
your comfort zone.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like I could actually really use a casserole and a hug.
But
Now.
it also shows a great deal about your emotional intelligence. And our
For
last
sure.
discussion that I had in here last week was about emotional intelligence and the
Yeah.
idea behind you forgiving your dad,
Yeah.
despite the trauma that he put you through, the life that you could have had despite him not being present.
Yeah.
You still were able to have the life that you lead today.
Yeah.
But the forgiving of his situation also, not necessarily the forgiving of your ex-husband, but the level of communication and understanding that you guys came up with to be
Right.
able to have a greater good or a bigger why or reason
Absolutely.
within y'all's lives, which is obviously your son,
Yeah.
and it's working to that extent.
Yeah. Everything comes back to emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And another thing, and I think I even sent you the book, which is a new one. So we have IQ, EQ, and now there's RQ. So relational intelligence as well. And what does that look like? But EQ and RQ really go hand in hand with communication and just an awareness. Like there's so
Right.
many people. I'm like, do you not even catch your thoughts? Like,
Right.
do you even know how fast a negative thought can affect your entire day, or a positive thought and how that can affect your day? And then I hate when people say like, oh, words don't have meaning. Words have a lot of meaning.
Mhm.
And the way, your tonality of how things are said, the words that you use, the expression on your face, like there's so many things that go into that, but understanding also where people come from
Mhm.
and being able to humble yourself as well, and not feeling a sense of pride or arrogance or entitlement.
Sure.
You have to know where to meet people. And I think the best people in sales, but in anything, whether it's your relationship with your partner, whether it's the relationship with your family, the relationship with your kids, the relationship with a stranger, how you just treat people in society. If you're not emotionally aware, not only of yourself, but your surroundings and
Mhm.
other people's body language,
Sure.
their tonality, the maybe something that they said. And if you can't meet people where they're at, how do you ever expect to have a deep emotional connection with anyone?
Right.
And
And that's the idea of building the relationship. You would have loved the presentation that we did last week,
I know.
where we talked about EQ
Yeah.
and emotional intelligence and the idea of utilizing that concept, which it is a big concept and a very deep rabbit hole that you can go down, which is
Yeah.
why there's IQ, EQ, and now RQ,
Mm-hmm.
which I think RQ is kind of a spinoff of EQ.
EQ for sure.
For,
Yeah. Yeah.
But the idea is being self-aware, but also being aware of your surroundings and how your reactions, your input affects others to the point that they're either going to want to move forward in building that relationship or they're going to steer away, even based on a shrug in many situations.
100%.
Yeah.
And especially in business.
Mhm.
So I was speaking with a gentleman in your office before we started.
Yeah.
And we were talking about people want to do business with people that they feel like they know.
Yep.
Or that they trust.
Mhm.
And I know we're kind of going off on a tangent, but it's there. I think the biggest thing that people just miss in this business is I'm like, dude, you're so cool outside of whatever this weird persona is that you're putting on for business. Like, that's not you. And then you're complaining that you don't have business or that you aren't attracting clients that are like-minded. Well, no, duh, because you're one person this way and then you're someone else when it comes to business.
That's right.
When people meet me, and it's the biggest compliment I can ever receive, is even if I've known people from a follower or whoever on social media, and then when I finally meet them in person and they're like, oh my God, I feel like I've known you forever because I've been following you for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 2 years, 6 months, 2 months, whatever it might be. But they're like, you are so genuinely authentic.
Yeah,
like,
you're the same
are
person.
the same person who you are when you filmed a live or who I'm hugging right now. Like, you are the same.
Yeah.
There's nothing different. And that took a lot of confidence.
It absolutely is.
It does.
Is confidence in, because there's a lot of folks out there that are in sales or any position, but we're talking about sales specifically, that don't get that concept of be your authentic self, and you'll attract those that are attracted to your personality. And if your personality that is your true self isn't attracting people, then it's time to maybe make some changes in your life that then change the course of your life and the people that you meet and the rooms that you get into.
For sure.
Does that make sense?
100%. And to me, it feels like it's not rocket science that it should be. I know.
Or is it?
I'm like, maybe it is. And I was like, oh God, no pun intended.
No, but the idea behind this is it's not intended to be rocket science.
No.
I'm obviously not a rocket scientist. So let's not make whatever it is that we are doing today or within this hour, this minute, too hard. It doesn't need to be that.
And I never had any idea until I actually started opening up and like talking to people. I met with an agent yesterday and she's like, girl, you just push me so much anytime we talk. Like, you should be a business coach. And I'm like, oh my God, why? Like, I can't even imagine doing that. And she's like, no, but the things that you're saying make sense. Like, why? Because I was giving out marketing ideas, because I do a group coaching business call every week, and someone was mentioning, struggling with business, but I have this other side business, and how do I pick up A clients instead of B and C? And I said, well, you own a photo booth. Like, why not leverage that? Like, you don't have to get paid for it because you're collecting data. If someone wants that photo, they're putting their phone number, they're putting their email. So why don't you go to A companies, A hospitals, A attorney offices, A wherever people are that you want to attract those clients, and leverage and say, hey, for a week, I want to donate my photo booth to you guys. I just hope that you have fun and enjoy it and capture some awesome memories for your business.
Absolutely.
Why don't you do that? And she's like, oh my God, that's genius. Like,
it's
that's so good.
It's that little thing called extra that makes somebody extraordinary.
Yeah.
They tend to just stay with, oh, well, this just isn't working. Well, you've got all of the levers. Start pulling on the levers,
Start doing it. And I'm like, dude, now I might go buy a photo booth. Like, my idea was really great. I could pick up some more A clients. That would be awesome. Like, if you're not going to do it, shoot, I will.
Right.
But it comes back to those concepts of you just have to be authentically yourself. Pour into other people the way you would like to be poured into. I think sheltering knowledge and ideas from people. Why? Like, if you have something that could help someone else succeed, there's so much business in this city or any city for multiple people.
Agreed.
Share that.
I agree.
There's nothing wrong with sharing good ideas.
I agree. And as a matter of fact, what I live by is I share all of my ideas, because the intent behind it is I made or created them or utilized them in a way that is so difficult that if you are able to duplicate it,
go ahead.
More power to you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we have different spheres, and that's okay too. So if my messages are radiating over here, great. It's not going to affect me. And I mentioned this on the last discussion. It was one man's success, one woman's success does not rob you of anything at all.
No,
at all.
At all. I loved that you said that last week and what you just said now. And the main reason, because I have two different types of people. I have one that's like, dude, you should also do business coaching. Like, you would be so good at it. You pump us up. You make us think outside the box. Go and also do that. And then I also have another side of my friends that are like, don't tell everyone your secrets. Don't do that. Like, watch out. What if someone takes it? I go, but here's the other thing. And I know you're going to be like, oh, 100%. What's the percentage of people that I could have just given you an idea, you have given people ideas, and they're like, man, that's such a good idea. I'm going to go out and do that.
It's less than 3%.
They never do it.
Correct.
So I'm like, so even if, and I hate that question too of like, well, how do you have so many listings, or how do you have so many buyers, and how are you doing this? And I tell them, but then they don't do it. Or I tell them and also go, hey, I'm telling you how you could do it. At the end of the day, though, you're never going to be me. So
boom, that's strong.
And it's not to be mean. It's not because I'm so nice.
You are
it's
right.
But you can't I can tell you what I do,
Right.
but just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Amen.
Don't come back at me and tell me, oh, well, I did what you said and it didn't work for me.
Right.
Right. But you're also not Whitney Robinson.
Boom.
You also aren't Mark Jones. Like, we have very different personalities.
Correct.
But I know also, coming back to EQ, if you and I had a client together, you're definitely more vocal. Is boisterous the right word?
I don't know, but it sounds great.
It sounds like someone's going to comment and be like, that's not a word. Okay, well, if it's not, guess what?
Okay.
I'm a great realtor. I'm not good at English.
Yeah, I am authentically myself from the get-go. Like from the initial text message, sometimes I'll send correct.
Like, I know if I'm going to work with you, because I like to personality match my clients to who I know can get the job done.
Yeah.
If I have someone who's like, I just want straight to the point, high energy, keep me on my toes, tell me how it's going to be, whether it's good or bad, I know I'm going to call you.
I'll be your
Huckleberry. If I know, and if I know someone's like, oh, I'm a little intimidated, I might need some hand holding, I'm just really nervous, I've just heard all these things because my family thinks they're also a mortgage loan officer, inspector, and an appraiser and all in one, and they've scared me half to death about the whole process.
Yep.
I know who I'm also going to send them to who's a really good hand holder.
Yeah.
But I know personality-wise, I can adjust. I know so can you. If I would call you also and go, hey, I do have somebody that like
needs some hand holding. Mark, you need to activate your EQ.
Yeah, like activate your EQ a little bit. You're going to be like, cool, okay. So I don't have to change who I am, but maybe I just need to bring it down 2 levels. Instead of being at 10, maybe I just need to be at 8. Doesn't mean my greatness is going to be at 8. Because I'm still going to be great.
Absolutely.
But I just need to meet somebody where they're at. And when you have that EQ of how you can meet people where they're at, your business is always going to flourish.
That's right. Matter of fact, that adaptation piece that you're talking about right now specifically is a part of EQ. I mean, it's that self-awareness and being able to adapt, because a person has a specific behavioral style, but then they also have an adaptive style that they can shift if necessary, if they have developed that enough within their EQ to be able to see the signals that say, hey, you can't talk to that borrower this way, or this person is better to have a phone call with them, etc.
Yeah.
So those are all good points that people should be listening to and honing in on, working on those things, because it's not kind of like a doctor. They wouldn't call them, it wouldn't be a doctor practice. It would be a doctor perfect. And there are no doctor perfects out there.
Definitely not.
I know I see billboards for what's that doctor's name with all the sculpture, whatever. Anyway.
Boom Boom Pow guy.
That's him. Yes.
He's like, I can make you look boom boom pow wow or something.
They're all over the place.
What?
Great marketing. Yeah, you know what you get.
Okay, yeah.
So
okay, that's who we're working with today.
JC, how are we on time?
47 minutes and 57 seconds.
47 minutes. Okay, so that being the case, what I would like to do is briefly talk about your first year into the industry as a new agent, but just briefly, because then I want to shift over to today's market, what you're experiencing, to give people kind of some insight to that.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Okay, so my first year in real estate was 2017.
Okay.
October 31st, so on Halloween.
Yeah.
I had my first listing by the first week of January 2018.
Okay.
So for the first, I would say 4 months, it was just a lot of marketing, getting my name out there, figuring out how to market for free. Because I had no money.
That's right.
Like getting in. Social media has always been my best asset. I've always been 100% authentic on my content. If I could pull up an old video, it's embarrassing, but I can't even believe that that's how I started.
Yeah.
But it really came back to just, hey, I don't have extra money to spend on marketing. I don't know anyone here. I want them to fall in love with who I am, because if they can fall in love with me and trust me, I know I can help them with real estate.
Yeah.
And I knew that from the very beginning. So
and that again is the emotional intelligence, having the confidence, not the cockiness. No. I am confident in who I've become, what I've learned, and what I can offer
someone.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I thank God, just knew that about myself at that time. And, maybe it's just because of the counseling I went through and the therapy and just like rebuilding that. But that was just how I started, whether it was picking up the phone and going on a tour to see new builds. Then I would also shadow at least 2 inspectors a week, not even on houses of my own. I would just pick up the phone and say, hey, do you have a home I can go and shadow you on? I would shadow appraisers. I wanted to see how they were appraising houses. I'm new to San Antonio, so I would pick builders twice a week, and I would go to the far east side. I would go to New Braunfels. I would go to Alamo Ranch. I would go to Bernie. I just would go everywhere so that I also knew what San Antonio had to offer, what price points, what was around everywhere.
So let me ask you this, and this is something that many of the experts that I've had in this room in different discussions, different topics, seem to always relate. And that is, you did the extra work at no pay.
Oh, 100%.
To make yourself better or to shape yourself into the expert that you are today in regards to real estate.
Yes.
And I also believe that that's something that the new agents, and I can't say all new agents, but a bulk
Handful
of
for sure.
Absolutely, that are going, where's the business? Where's the business? Are not doing. They're not catching the idea of, okay, I've got to put in several months, years of doing this and going through the motions and acquiring all the knowledge, because if you're not going through it, you at least can see about it. You can shadow somebody.
Right.
You can go and ask questions, things of that nature. But it's just not happening.
No, I have told this story multiple times, not only to agents in our office, other agents that call me. How did you get started? How did you get your first deal? What did you do? How did your week look? How do I time block? What should I do? I've told them, go call up home inspectors, call up appraisers, call up new builds, go get a whole map of the city and go and look at all 4 sides of it and everything in between.
That's right.
Make a drive all the way up to New Braunfels. And then I get met with, but I don't even have money for gas. Well, you know what? Then honestly, you're in the wrong business.
That's right.
Like, go get a 9 to 5, do this on the side, build up 6 months of your savings, and then come and do it. You can't make someone do it.
It's true.
You have to. Like, if you actually want this business and you want it bad enough, you're going to learn and you're going to go and take the drive.
Yeah.
You think I had an extra $50 to go fill up my tank every week? No. I'm a brand new mom going through a divorce and selling my house.
And you found a way.
I don't. I'm just the wrong person to come to and say, I want to be on your team. Can you feed me leads? No, I'm absolutely not that type of person. Like, you come to me and they're like, oh, I just couldn't do it today. I just didn't have the drive. Don't bring me an excuse. Find a solution.
I like that.
If you really have a problem, I will help you solve it. But if you just don't want to get up and go work and do something that is free, yes, you have to pay for gas. Trust me, that's the cheapest thing in this business that you got to pay for.
Good
100%.
point. Good point.
Like, if you can't pay for gas, you are in the wrong business.
Well, that and lessons, if the magnitude of them is worth learning, typically they cost money.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
100%. And also, I always tell agents, they're like, oh, I don't want to ask the question. I don't want to feel dumb or embarrassed. I'm like, if you knew how many questions I asked when I was brand new getting into this business, I felt like the kid in middle school that was like, I have a question. I have a question. Why? But how?
And what's funny about that is I was the same way when I first got into the industry. You'd call it naivete or lack of filter, but I asked a ton of questions. The loan officers in my office at the time in 2012 were probably annoyed with me
for sure
until I passed them all up.
Yeah.
That's
how I was. I knew agents were irritated with me in the very first office I was at. They're like, my God, you have so many questions. And I'm like, I want to be an expert in what I do. this business. My why is so big, I can't fail. So the other thing I asked, which I think a lot of agents don't even ask their broker this. My very first question I even asked my broker is, what's your average price point that you sell, and what's the highest house you've ever sold? And when he told me that, now granted, I'm coming from wealth management and business banking.
Sure.
So I'm already thinking, I want to work smarter not harder.
Well, that's not a downfall. That's a leverage that you've acquired, and you're taking the experiences, the communication and understanding with those type of people,
Right.
and leveraged it to being able to
Yeah.
relate to those people.
Correct. Yeah. It took a lot for me to get into that business already,
Mhm.
and then how to relate to them, because I never, ever even saw $1,000 in my life
Yeah.
in my mom's bank account, let alone mine. And I'm over here telling people how to manage 25 million
Right.
that's sitting in an investment fund.
Yep.
Like, I know the knowledge. I just wanted to get there myself.
That's right.
But when I got into real estate, and I'm like, man, y'all have to sell. Okay, so if I want $1 million property, now if I want a $30,000 commission check, I could sell one house, or I'm going to have to sell like 5 other houses to maybe meet that.
And that reverse engineering that you're doing right now to come up with a goal, you've got to start with the end in sight. That's what you just did. You
Nobody wants to
reversed it.
reverse engineer.
Nobody wants to.
No one ever wants to reverse engineer.
They just want to get there.
Yeah. And they're like, how do I get there? And I'm like,
How?
so
Mhm.
think about what you actually want.
Yep.
How are you going to get it from there?
Yeah.
So obviously, if I did that, I didn't just go from, oh, I need to sell 5 houses to, I'm just going to sell $1 million house. No, of course not. Especially in 2017,
Good
our
luck.
average price point was what, 180?
If that.
Like,
yeah.
but I was like, I'd be damned if I'm going to have to work that hard, because I got out of banking so that I can be with my son. And I want more time. So I just worked my way up. I'm like, all right, well, if I sell a $300,000 house, it's a $9,000 commission. Okay. And then when the price point exceeds, okay, so if I do 450, okay, if I do 500, and then it was that reverse engineering of, okay, well, I know if I go and try and find 2 $500,000 clients, and if I can close 2 of them in a month, that's a $30,000 paycheck.
Mhm.
But reverse engineering that way. And the other thing that no one ever wants to talk about, definitely from my banking side, I guarantee you, and we should run a poll, how many realtors actually know their monthly overhead,
Ooh.
living expenses?
We talked about that with who was it? Martin Toretto. And the honest truth is many don't.
Yeah, they have no idea.
They don't even know that they've
live
got to pay taxes on what they earned at the end of the year.
Oh, and then they're like, oh, I'm still paying taxes from 2020. I'm like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, the IRS might be coming and knocking on your door soon. But it's so crazy. So that's really where the reverse engineering happened
Mhm.
for me is, and it does come from the financial planning side, but I said, okay, everything is a bill at this point. So when you're 100% commission, everything. So your rent, your mortgage, your car, your, car insurance, health insurance, groceries, gas, cell phone, Netflix, Amazon, everything. I wrote all of it down.
It's very methodical. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is how much I have to make. And when I saw that my monthly overhead was at least $5,000 to $6,000 a month with my son's private school tuition, mortgage costs, car costs, MLS due, just
Sure.
everything is this number. I have to sell X
You know
amount.
what they call that number in many cases?
What?
Your nut.
Oh.
You've got to get to that
Yeah.
nut in order to crack it. Now everything
Yeah.
else is potential profit, so to speak,
Yeah.
or savings that
Yeah.
allows you to then grow to invest and to leverage
Yes.
and to invest back into your business. So that way, hopefully your nut stays lower and your
Yeah.
profit starts to exceed that. Now, mind you, what we've discovered is that the more you make, the more you spend. So therefore your nut gets increased.
You
but
have to
hopefully
keep-
your fixed expenses stay
Yeah,
low.
Stay low.
Yeah.
And you have to always do a financial check-in with yourself and your family as well, because that obviously,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I had to do that too. I mean, it was like, oh, well,
Super
shoot,
important.
people say like, what do they say? Like, more money, more problems.
Mo money, mo problem. It's like that.
It really
Mo money,
is
mo
true. I'm
problem.
like, oh man. And then people come out of the woodworks. I'm like, dude, I've never talked to you since I was like 10. And what do you need? Whatever.
It happens.
I
It
get
happens.
Weird questions sometimes. But reverse engineering. So knowing what my monthly expenses were and going from there, and knowing what I had to hit.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing where people go, you never seem really stressed out in your business. Well, yes, because I pay myself like corporate. I know my monthly living expenses is this. So all of my commission checks go into my money market.
Right.
I know on the first of every month, I need to pay myself at least $5,500.
Mhm.
So I pay myself on the first of the month. All my bills get paid. Whatever is still here stays. So if I do have a really good month where I might bring in 30,000 or more for the month, I know if I had to, that at least at minimum pays for 5 months of my living expenses.
Perfectly
So
so.
I'm not stressed out. Now, of course, yes, I want to close every month, but we also know in this business that
It's not
paycheck is
guaranteed.
not
That's right.
guaranteed until it's actually in your bank account, and maybe 24 hours later is how I always feel about it. Like I'm not counting it until it's already sat there.
Yeah.
But when you do that, it relieves a lot of stress from going that feeling of why I left corporate in the first place. I never wanted to feel, oh, got to live paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
Why are you living commission to commission?
Yeah.
It's
Good
the same
point.
concept.
It is
Don't
the same
do that.
concept. You're
Like,
right.
If I will take a vacation because I know I have 5 months of my living expenses covered.
Right.
But if I don't, I'm not taking that vacation just because I got paid $15,000 today. Like that, I'm not doing that. But so many people do.
Well, that being said, that's a good segue for this last topic that we're going to discuss. And essentially, it is realtors taking these unforeseen and unexpected vacations just due to the lack of transactions that are going on and whatever the case may be. But I want to use a reference, and we'll talk about this to get your
Okay.
take on it.
Sure.
JC, if you can throw that bad boy up there. So I saw this post, and this, mind you, on a real estate humor social media group. And I'm not hiding anybody's names or nothing like that. You're on social media, so you're public anyway.
Yeah.
But in this realtor or real estate humor group, you normally would see funny memes. You would normally see things that get you to laugh, right?
Yeah.
But I've been seeing a trend of posts like this.
Yeah, me too.
What are the best ways a struggling agent can close deals quickly? I need to pay my mortgage. And some of the responses to this, it's almost elementary, but it's like these people maybe need to be told this. I don't know. But
Yeah,
like,
shocked
for
me.
example, Sarah says here, don't be ashamed to get a side hustle to make ends meet. If you have the resources, I would look into some lead sources like whoever this lead company is. This is my first year I've ever bought leads in my entire career, and it's helped me double my production previous year from the previous year. Let's go to the next one. A tip is to not ignore the people that inquire
100%.
that they say that they want to rent. My initial reaction when I started was to ignore these leads, but what I found is that a lot of these people are uneducated on the market. The media
Definitely.
is saying things like homes and rates all times high, which is not true, and then people think that they can't buy.
Yeah.
Let's look at the next one here. Grace says, pick up the
That's
phone.
great.
You
Just pick up the phone, guys.
pick up the
Seriously.
phone and make calls.
Yeah.
How
Like
many-
actually call them.
Yeah, put in the work.
And if you don't want to call them, because I was telling your colleague as well.
Yeah.
If you don't want to pick up the phone, for God's sakes, send a voice memo. Send something that people can hear that you are a real person.
Yeah.
And your tonality. But coming back to EQ, people, they just don't want to.
It's true.
Fine.
This one here that she put, I think, is huge. How many real estate conversations are you having each day?
For sure.
Get some leads. And then the idea behind that is, how many conversations are you having related to real estate? Because if you're not talking about real estate other than to say, hey, how do you guys get leads? You're talking to the wrong people.
Yeah.
You need to be talking to the people that need to buy homes or sell homes in order to make money,
Right.
not other people that are buying, that are selling them and helping others buy them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me see. There's
That's why I don't. That's why I personally don't attend too many like real estate mixers.
Same.
I always joke with. I'm like, I'm sorry. Why am I going to come and sit here when if I ever even have 2 hours by myself? Trust me, it's either going to be at a really nice restaurant with me and my family, or it's going to be me cuddled up with my dog and a glass of wine and going to bed early. I promise you, it's not going to be hanging out with you guys that don't send. We don't send each other deals.
Right. That's the idea.
I'm
Is why are
gonna
you going
treat
to
you
mixers if there's no business to be had there?
Yeah.
you will come in contact with those agents when you are on the other side of a deal.
Yeah, just treat them well, when you're on the other side.
So this one I actually love, and I have heard this same thing, but in a
this
different
one too.
way.
Yeah.
People buy and sell real estate for the same reasons every time, and it's death, divorce, diamonds. I had never heard that.
I haven't heard that one either. That's a
diapers.
Good one. For sure.
I like that.
100%.
And let me go through this often. So death, often probates are good for this. Many people who are inheriting homes are either out of state or don't want the home and have to sell it. Divorce, work with divorce attorney.
100%.
Like how many divorce attorneys do you have in your Rolodex, so to speak?
Yeah. None.
Diamonds, I like that. Marriage, people moving in together and upsizing.
Yeah.
Hang out with wedding planners and network with them. And the idea behind all of these is birds of a feather flock together. And the concept of, okay, I'm going to buy a red car. As soon as I drive off the lot, what do you see? Bunch of red cars.
Yeah.
If somebody's having a baby, it's odd, but your friend is having a baby now. Something's in the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
The same concept applies with real estate. So this last one here, diapers. Kids means people often need more space. There are data brokers that sell data on people's shopping habits. If someone is starting to buy certain items that may be pregnant and those people that are likely to sell. That's pretty smart. And it's super
I like that.
layman.
I'm going to do that one.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let me get your take on that.
For sure.
What are your thoughts on number one, the question that is being asked, and then number two, the responses that are being given?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say, and I mean it with the most utmost just respect, is you need to, whatever money you do ever come in contact with, you really need to steward it well. It's very important. You have to in this business. So steward your money well, but then how do you get business? You actually need to put in the work. You do need to get out and film content, educate people, ask people. I mean, if you have enough time to make this post, you have enough time to make a post going, hey guys, so my name is Cassandra, and I just wanted to let you guys and remind you today, I am a real estate agent. I know there is a lot of media and marketing that is going around, kind of putting some fear out there about interest rates or what the market's going to do, what the election's going to do, and where housing market might go, or that the equity has dropped. But ask me. I am your real estate expert. Be the expert. Ask people to ask you questions, but get engaged with other people. It doesn't take a lot of rocket science and money.
That's true.
To just ask questions. Just ask your audience.
Yeah.
And my audience started with 5 people. I mean, my audience was not big. Now I'm up to almost 6,000, but it's like you build as you also grow, but then you also need to add of value.
Yeah.
And do other things as well. Do maybe a Tip Tuesday where you're talking about homeowner tips. You don't always have to be asking for business. You can lead with value. Lead with value in a servant's heart, and I feel like the business is actually going to come. You lead with sales, and it's never going to come.
Absolutely.
Because I hate being sold to. Don't you hate being sold to?
I'll be honest.
Like it.
I love being sold to because I consider myself a pretty good salesperson and high EQ to be able to play the game with that salesperson if they haven't picked up that I know what I'm doing when it comes to sales. So I think a good salesman wants to be sold.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean,
I just hate it. I just hate the emails and I hate all this stuff.
I'm either going to buy or not, but I'm also going to give you feedback on where you went wrong.
That's awesome.
If that makes sense.
Well, maybe I'll do that and then it'll become more of like a fun game.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can I give you some feedback?
The other thing that you mentioned here without mentioning it was essentially the idea behind if you build it, they will come. Just because you're a realtor doesn't mean you're going to inherently get customers, clients, etc.
Right.
So the idea is if you build it, they will come. No, only if they know about it. And the only way for them to know about it is taking the advice that you're giving.
For sure.
Put content out there. Even if the content sucks, at least they can see that you're a real person, that's who you are genuinely.
And you're trying.
Absolutely.
People want to work with people that try, aren't scared of failure, not scared of messing up. How many times, I can't even tell you how many times I've been on, perfect example. I did a live at one of my broker opens recently.
Yeah.
Because I have 8 listings up right now, I can't remember all of their addresses.
Sure.
And there was just one and I just drew a blank. And of course I'm on live and I'm like, Yeah, so we'll see you here at the address 172-721-178. And I said, I don't know. I don't know what the address is, but I'm walking out to the street anyways. I'm going to look on the mailbox. I'll tell you in a second.
There you go.
But people don't care. They just want to know. They're like, oh, all right, shoot. And she's at least funny and can laugh at herself. I don't know. I can't remember everything.
Well, you showed them more about your personality, which resonates further than the information on the open house, because I will tell you, nobody is going to see your post on the open house and go, you know what? Let's go drive by that house.
Yeah.
It's not how it
going to
works.
see that. But they're going to be like, oh, well, at least I can pick up the phone and she's going to be fun to work with.
That's right.
You know, she at least knew the stats and the things about the house.
Yes.
Address, come on, that's irrelevant. Like, you just need to know it's in Timberwood Park and I need you to be here.
There you go.
I'll get you the actual address. It's on it, you know, but it's just being authentically you. And then I do like what some of the other people said as well, just marketing ideas. Like, why are you not, if you need to make money quickly, go out and talk to people.
Well,
like,
I mean, I think the
other
idea,
businesses or
if you've gotten to the point that you don't have a deal in the pipeline, money quick and real estate don't go hand in hand.
No, you at least need like a 3-month gap for sure.
At minimum, you need 30 days because you got a contract and then it closes. But a way to avoid that I can give as in way of a tip is when I first started in the industry, January, March, May of 2012, from my first paycheck that I received, I always put 20% back into the business itself in marketing, in training, in coaching, any of those things that I will be honest, I live on residual to this day because it resonated so far. I mean, people still talk to me about my trucks that I had wrapped, that kind of stuff. You still have that truck wrap? I know you from that. And I'm like, I haven't had that in years, but it still strikes conversation.
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome.
So
no, I agree. I think it's just very important, like, to think outside the box. I also tell people, and maybe this is another one. Now, granted, quickly, I always say 3 months because I'm like, unless they're just like cash ready to go or their credit is just excellent. 30 days from like meeting with you, getting approved, finding a house that same day, and then going under contract.
Right.
3 months, just give or take. But another thing that people I feel like don't think about is, what do you actually love to do? And then go market there. So for example, if you're like a big pet lover and just love animals, and then maybe you also like to cook, why are you not going to the dog park every single Saturday or every other day? If you don't have business, then go to the dog park.
Right.
Go somewhere. But make little dog biscuits. Put the recipe. Put your business, business sticker on the back of it.
That's right.
What are you doing? Like, take 10 of those and go talk to people. Even if they're not going to buy with you, you're at least touching enough people and creating raving fans that will advocate for you, that go, you know what? There was this really awesome lady, or there was this really awesome gentleman that was at the dog park and they made me this biscuit. If you're looking, call them. They were super helpful.
That's a good point, because there are still people that get into real estate and then post nothing but real estate on social media when
we all know, well, you would
every
hope,
person has at least 10 people that are realtors on their friends list. So how are you separating yourself from the others? And that's kind of what this person in the post didn't do, which is why they found themselves in the situation that they're in.
Yeah.
I would go to say.
Yeah.
Whitney, it's been a great discussion. JC, what are we at time-wise?
1 minute, 13 seconds.
Oh, on the money.
Did it. Look at that.
So that being said, Whitney, there's been some great discussions within this one chat. We learned a lot about your upbringing. We learned that you've gone through plenty of adversity and succeeded, come on the other side, utilize that to better yourself and become the lady that you are today.
Yeah.
And it speaks volumes. It is a message and a example for many out there that are, who knows, trying to figure it out when they trying to figure out what they want to do when they grow up still, But that being the case, is there anything that you would like to add? Let everybody know.
Yeah, there's just for sure just one more thing.
Go for it.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned with the power of a positive mindset and just catching your thoughts is at the end of the day, no one, absolutely no one, not your spouse, not your family, not your child, not your boss, the only person that is ever truly 100% that's going to show up for you is you.
Boom.
And you have to be self-disciplined in this business. Honestly, with anything in life, it doesn't matter where you are. If you want a better job promotion at where you're at, you're not going to get there just by showing up. You have to put in the extra work. You have to believe in yourself. You have to outdo what someone else is not doing. But the only person that can ever do that for you is you.
Yeah.
Stop looking for someone else to do it for you. And then the other thing, which I heard this like a week ago, and it was an agent, just sitting in a mastermind class that I was in. And she was struggling. She's been in the business for about 2 years and just struggling. And she's like, I really do think the main reason why I'm struggling to just like have passion and wake up and, go out and do these things that you're mentioning is because I just don't have a big enough why. Like I don't have that. If you don't know your why, and if you don't have a value proposition in this business, especially after August 17th, when everything is about to change nationwide, if you don't have, and I heard it this morning on my podcast I was listening to, if you don't even have a value proposition that's going to make you different than someone else, you will likely not make it in this business. But if you are good, and they said this, and it made me think about you, and it was Tom Ferry.
Okay.
But he said, if you don't have good communication skills. So let's go back to EQ again. It all goes back to that. If you don't have good communication skills, the agents that are going to outshine, outdominate, outperform, become millionaires in this business and know how to explain to the buyers and the sellers with the changes that are happening, if you don't know how to explain that clearly, you will fail.
That's right.
So for the agents that already have really good communication and are not fearful about just answering the hard questions,
Sure.
we're going to be okay. We're definitely still going to feel the pain points.
That's right.
I'm not saying that I haven't already felt it. I felt it.
Yeah.
But I am very confident in what the new regulations mean.
Sure.
I've always been doing that since day one. When I found out that people weren't doing buyer rep agreements, I was like, wait, what? Like, I was told you just had to. Like,
Right.
I've been doing that since 2017. So I don't really feel like I'm changing anything in my business, but I will run circles around people that don't have a big enough why or that don't have the good communication skills. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think anyone in this business that already is comfortable in their own skin, that knows why they are in this business and believes that every single day they have to wake up for themselves because no one else is going to do it for them, they're going to be the ones that kind of take over for a while. And I just pray and hope that everybody else catches up too. But you have to put in the work. You just have to. No one's going to do it for you. You're going to do it for yourself.
Well, those are some powerful words there from Whitney Robinson. And those of you out there listening, I'm sure there was plenty of nuggets that you gained from this discussion. I know that I did. And if you are getting something, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. But one thing that I do want to end on that I actually wrote down and then you reiterated it. So I know that it was definitely a key factor and something that I preach to my loan officer, something that I 100% wholeheartedly believe in. And that is the idea behind you need to have a why so big that you can't fail. There is no plan B.
Right.
And if you want success as bad as you want to breathe, chances are you'll succeed.
100%.
So that being the case, Whitney, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those of you out there listening, thanks for continued support. Hopefully we will have a next week or the following week a discussion about some of those changes that are going to be taking place for realtors and those alike. But until then, we will catch you on the next one.
Someone has already done and is already doing what you want to do. And no, they didn't fall into a rich family to do so. They were not born lucky. You know you can be more. You can have